And first of all, just wanted to have an introduction from you. Um, Talk about your podcast, about what you're doing in your work, and maybe we can go from there.
Sure. So I am the host of Your Thoughts podcast. It's a podcast I started about 3 years ago now. We've done about, we'll be dropping episode 22 next week. So 22 episodes. We usually try to have different guests. So it's not just the co host and I or just me. And it's about a variety of different topics ranging from so the topic could be anything that you want to bring. That's why it's called Your Thoughts. So anything from religion to politics to music to what kind of art you're interested in or what you do. Like you as your the host of your show, like you could come on and talk about your show, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm also the creator of a brand called Aggregate Perspective. I've been doing that about 4 years. It's primarily been service-based graphic design photography stuff, but eventually I'd like to get into merchandising as well.
Hmm.
That's kind of where the money is. Physical products, you know. I also create music. I am My artist name is Stumpy. I'm also in a project called Mars Nebula and
Hmm.
uh, a band called Louis on tour. That's pretty much what occupies my time.
You do a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah,
And
not all at once, of course. It's kind of like this week I'll focus on this. This week I'll
uh-huh.
focus on that.
It's really great because you can express yourself in many different ways. I mean, you can express it through photography and to kind of design stuff to uh, with your brand, and also the express yourself in music, and also you can express yourself by talking to other people. So you got in
Right.
all endeavors, right? That is really cool. And I wanted to ask you actually, how was your 2020 and what you learned from this year when everything seems to be weird, right?
Um, it's been fascinating, especially because in the beginning stages of last year, I was transitioning into a whole new life to begin
Mm-hmm.
with. So as COVID started becoming very present, um, it really, as negative as all of it has been, it gave me a lot of time to focus on my art, which has
Mm-hmm.
been incredibly beneficial for me as somebody like going through the life experiences that I had and transitioning into a new life in a new place and finding myself again, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
it gave me a lot of time to self reflect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a lot of people, it means the rebirth of the self, like for all this past years when every day you have to go somewhere, you don't have so much time to reflect, basically. This is what I observed. I was on autopilot every time, like getting to a job, finishing a project, then moving to another thing, and didn't find my true passion, which is actually talking to people, which is actually helping people communicate their brand, their ideas, bring people together. And it was also really interesting to reflect on my past, let's say, mistakes, or
Right.
just lessons. I don't think that there are um, mistakes. There are just lessons. So eh,
Just the
yeah,
traumas and thoughts and memories that come up in
exactly. Yeah,
isolation.
exactly. And this is the year that I really stopped, following any of the perception that, like, I have to be this way because people demand from me to be in a certain way. I just want to express whatever I want, to be able to give a voice to others, to other amazing people. So this is the reason that I did a lot of interviews with coaches, with fitness instructors, with entrepreneurs, and I find out that everyone has a voice, and it's great to have this kind of podcast when you can discuss with others that can bring a lot of value to other human beings, because this was like this year I found out that there a lot of people out there are looking for answers. So
Yeah.
maybe I could provide some of the answers for their questions. By the way, I have people from all over the world that that are listening to here, so I'm shouting out to all the people out there. And just wanted to kind of bring up to this one to this year which already started, and I wanted to ask you, what do you want to see it, like where do you want to see a change in the world, maybe in this year, because I think this year a lot of things will shaken up, a lot of the past dogmas and beliefs from the old system will just shaken, and we have to put out there in the world the things that we want to change. So what is your thoughts on that? Like, what change do you want to see in the world in this year?
I think we are in dire need of actual connection
Mm-hmm.
socially, especially because of the isolation from the pandemic, but I think politically and spiritually as well. Like people are really, it's not like always verbally angry, but like there is an underlying anger, especially in my country right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think we need to communicate it and we need to heal from it, or it's going to tear us apart.
Yeah, and I don't think just in your country, I think all over the world
No,
there are this kind of polarities, and also in my country I see it as well, because there are many stories, many opposite stories that are, circulating in the media, and of course there are other sides that are completely opposite from your side, and um,
to
if
be
you
fair,
don't yeah, if you're
there's
believing so strong into this kind of stories, it's really hard to see the other see the other side, right?
oh yeah, an incredible amount of misinformation. And to be fair, there's always this polarity. Like it's not a negative. There has to be that polarity. That's how we make progress. But the the tension is so intense.
Mm-hmm.
I am for the past couple of years, I've been pretty concerned about legitimate violence breaking out
So
because it's
now
been like
everything is.
pockets of people
Mm-hmm.
protesting or looting or burning stuff down, or like the Capitol protests in my country recently. Um, things like that, like those have been concerning, but that's not the peak of what I'm concerned of. That's like symptoms of it rising up, you know. I'm legitimately concerned about a civil war in my country.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people are talking or feeling that this is the path to, you know, how things are looking. It's going to in that direction. But
But
yeah.
something like that, I think globally that would have a very detrimental impact on a lot of other countries as well. So if you're American and you're listening to this, I think you have a responsibility to have those conversations because it's not just our country that would be affected.
Mm-hmm. That's completely true. Yeah, we'll go into that, but
Sure.
I wanted to just set up the stage for this conversation. So you said that the recent years, and not just the 2020, but the last years and decades, was pointing in this direction of looting and mass violence. But what you think is the main reason of all these completely opposite worldviews, and also not being able to really communicate with the other side? When was the point when the things go in the wrong direction? what do you think at globally, or in your country, in US, what was the starting point of all of this? Because I don't think it's just the COVID thing. COVID thing is just a
Right.
story that blows away everything, but there are really deep and other things that connected to that. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
So I don't know if I can speak to it globally, just because I have a pretty limited experience on talking to people from other countries
Hmm.
outside of maybe London. Um, but I think part of it is this has always existed. People have a perspective of wanting to change things or wanting to keep things the same, and that always creates tension. And there is economic disparity that has become pretty apparent, not just in the U.S., also in other countries, especially with the expansion of capitalism over time, which isn't a negative. I think people have this negative connotation, but it's expanded. Um, it's lifted people out of poverty as well, and that's a huge factor that people should consider. Um, but these things over time, not addressing the concerns with the economic system that are detrimental or um, values that we may disagree with that we don't know how to communicate, those things over time, and then pushing people to pick a side with the media, especially the media, just influencing narrative and your perspective on the 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 enemy. We're
Yeah,
not enemies. None of us are enemies. If we actually had a conversation with each other, we would agree on more than you think.
exactly, exactly.
But
Uh,
the conversation ends once I have a perspective that I won't bend on or I won't listen to you on because I have some sort of moral high ground or superiority complex or something like that. My emotions are getting in the way of having a conversation. That I think that's obviously a very general way of phrasing all of this, but that I think that's at the heart of it.
exactly. Yeah, and to be able to listen more, I think it's a skill that can be developed in a lot of ways, because now it's kind of you you don't want to listen to the other side, you don't want to listen to whatever your opinion is, you just bubble up, and all the social media groups, or just the tribalism that um,
Right.
the media are reinforcing your beliefs, right? Because like the factions of in the past, they were like harder to get together and forming like and rioting together, or just you know violence in the society and all of that. These guys are like reinforcing their beliefs because they are part of the same groups with people with the same beliefs, and it's really easy to just uh, ignore all the facts or the science or whatever the other side propose on their agenda, and you just follow your own agenda and your tribe agenda, and there is nothing else. It's just your opinion, and you have to just keep on that. But I think
Yeah.
I was listening to a lot of people around the world, and actually I think now is the time to build something new, and a system that can be better, or to build bridges around, because as you said, and I really agree with that. I mean, every time there were polarity, disagreement, but we don't have to just punch another guy in the face. We can talk, we can express our ideas in a way that don't bother others, or just not mm, violate the rule of law and all of that. So
Right. Tension breeds a need for action, and you can decide what that action is. It doesn't have to be fighting each other. We can build something better.
exactly, and through this conversations, and we have all this technology, and we can speak with other people that are like in opposite direction of the world. And um, I'm trying to do these interviews. I was interviewing last year. Actually, I did two interviews with some people from US, and some girl that I interview was telling me that actually there is some, and they can see some progress after the elections, because they told me that a lot of people came to vote, like the biggest number in history. And I want
Yes.
to ask you on that, like, what is the feeling about the politics there? And people are more open to the space, and they understand how the politics affect their lives, or what happened exactly?
I think there definitely was a political awakening in the past couple of years. Um, it's kind of hard to say, especially since you kind of haven't been able to talk to people as much. Like online talking to people is not the same as actually having a conversation, you know? So, and everybody has different starting points and different, I suppose, echo chambers. So it's really difficult to gauge. But as far as the election goes, there was an overwhelming amount of people that voted, which is uncommon. A lot of people sit out the elections, especially for the general election for president. They sit it out. Yeah, I'm actually not sure how to answer that.
Yeah, and related to the whole thing that happened last year in your country, like, um, usually we heard here in Europe about, mm, before this thing, just about like what stupid thing Trump did, or what other, I don't know, political corruption, or what happened with the guys from North Korea and the nuclear bombs and stuff like that. This is the
Right.
narrative before the COVID, and all of these changed from the COVID thing, and the narrative in the mainstream media here was like, yeah, Trump is denying the coronavirus. He's killing people and all of that because he's not locking them in their house. So I just want to hear your opinion about how media tell the stories of what happened in the U.S., and how did you saw the narrative before this virus, and how things change afterwards, or they follow the same path?
So I have no doubt that Trump downplayed Corona. Um, he kind of took a step back and let the states decide on what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really depends on your political perspective. If you're more libertarian or more left or right or authoritarian in your leanings, I think he should have had a more direct and heavy-handed approach. I think masks should have been mandatory. I think shutting down businesses should have been something that was more widespread rather than letting states decide initially. Obviously, long term, that's not a good idea because your economy will collapse. But downplaying it, saying that it's China's responsibility, China caused this, like playing that blame game, which could be true, could not be true. It's still, I think, pretty unclear what actually happened. Um, I think our approach was not very good, and you can see that by the numbers.
Yeah.
And it's still the death count is still rising.
And
I
now, how
think
is the situation
highest
there?
days that we've had are have been pretty recent.
Mm-hmm. And the things are not. um, getting better, or I heard that there are still lockdowns in different states. Um,
Yeah.
things are not getting like better, or you don't see um, progression in this regard, like with the lockdowns and all of that, the death rates and everything.
It's kind of been an ebb and flow.
Hmm.
In my state specifically, it's pretty it's hard to talk politics with somebody outside of the country because American politics, like libertarian, that perspective is probably different from other countries' perspective on libertarian.
Hmm.
But libertarian, as in like an American libertarian, like a really almost anti-government freedom kind of perspective. Like I don't want the government telling me what to do. That's how my state is specifically. So the mask thing has not been mandatory. Businesses have not been required to shut down initially, and then they were if you were non-essential businesses, and then it's kind of been back and forth. Like some of them can stay open, some of them can't. Social distancing has been something that has been required.
Interesting.
What? How has your country's response been?
It was the opposite. In Romania, the government still rules a big portion of the society. I mean, especially in Europe, I think the government is more socialized. Like the social part of the government is bigger than in US. I've lived also in Germany, so I've been traveling in other countries in Europe, and what I saw is
That sounds
that
amazing.
yeah, it is amazing. I mean, it's great to see different cultures because we are part of the same union, like the EU, the European Union, and you can travel without anything, just with your ID card. You can travel in all the countries. Um, but there are big differences also between the cultures, the languages in all the countries in the European Union. So that's the reason that a lot of them are divided, or
Right.
some countries have different opinions. But we did the same, like the European Union didn't impose some rules around the coronavirus, but every state has to do their own. Like Sweden, I don't know if you heard, but they didn't do any of the mask things or the social distancing. Um,
Yes, I have heard that.
they are not mandatory, but they're recommended by the government. And they, at the first phase, they thought that uh, we should arrive to the herd immunity, and things will solve. But after a while, like in this winter, they find out that all the hospitals are like full, and they solicit help to other states. In my country, to answer your question, we handle it with a lot of the government impose a lot of restrictions, and they um, were strong in these rules. People get fines. I also getting when I was out, I was having discussion with the police like 2 or 3 times. They told me to wear mask. We have to kind of have a paper when we go at some place in the store or having a walk in the park. You need a paper to write yourself that you are aware of the situation that you are exposed to when you go outside. So the rules were pretty strict, and there were a lot of fines to the guys who are not respecting the rules. But overall, I think it was good in the first phase, but after a while, they did like it was too much for the people. It was too much at one point because yeah, a lot of them respected the rules, but you know how it is with people when you suppress all of these emotions, when people want to come together, even even outside, in having a walk in the park or something. This was
Right.
forbidden, and after a while they
Really?
really, really get a lot of anger in themselves. And in the summer, it was like everyone going into parties, because at some point the restriction just just were like, after a weekend the of the restriction period was finally over, and for 2 or 3 days everything was kind of not regulated. And everyone in these 2 3 days come together, party, go to the seaside, go to the mountains, and was crazy. And after that they did it again, like they regulated again. And um, since then it's the same thing. It's like just a part of the business are open, and the essential ones, but you can go to some restaurants with social distancing and wearing a mask. But overall it's better now, it's better. Yeah, so this is the situation in my country. So it's interesting that you had a different perspective. All right.
So overall, I would say that my country has had the same response. Each state has a different response. So my state specifically had that response, but say New York or California, they were also requiring masks, shutting down businesses, fining people if they were out without masks. Um, so it's not like a across the board the U.S. is doing exactly the same thing in every state.
Mhm.
It'd be similar to the varying differences in the European Union.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Here also, like I said, countries handle it really, really different. Right now, there are, like, for example, full lockdowns in UK,
Right.
and in Germany some like really strong lockdowns. Here it's not like there. So it really depends on the number of cases, how the government handle it. So um, yeah, I think it's really important just to have different perspective on that, and just say whatever we have in our minds, because some people think that a lot of freedoms are suppressed during these times. A lot of them say it's necessary to have this lockdown. So I like to hear different perspective, because it's true that this thing never happened in our lives before. So we have a new situation, and we have to respond in the best way for as many people as possible.
Right.
And this is really hard to do. I mean, a lot of people blame the governments or blame someone, but it's not just one people's fault, or one guy who is the president, or whatever. It's not his fault. And nobody knows what to handle it. But I think in near future we will be like much more accepting the situation. We will understand that this thing is going on with the virus, and there will be another viruses. But the thing is that we have to live with them, with all these new things happen, and we have just to protect the people who are the most in danger. And this is what I tried, to stay away from the old people and stuff. This is my way to just protect others, like not being not staying with my grandpa or my grandma, or uh,
Yeah.
visiting them all the time, interacting with 3,000 people. Like, before I was really going to a lot of parties, but now
Oop.
I
Video started playing in the background. It scared me.
yeah.
There's just a loud applause suddenly.
Oh, cool. It's like a stand-up comedy show. Yeah, yeah, man. So yeah, we were talking about what happened in the capital, and I heard many opinions about the situation, and wanted to ask you, like, what really happened. I mean, from your point of view, how was it possible for these people to enter in the building, or breaking the police force?
How
It
is
was
it
like
possible?
they were invited to go there, right?
I We spent a ridiculous amount on national defense. I don't know how they let that happen. I don't know why Capitol Police. I mean, I understand they were overrun, so they started letting people in, but I feel like it was their responsibility to not do that. Um, the mayor of DC told the National Guard to stand down, so that didn't help. That's in response to um, the response that protesters had in Portland, Oregon, when the National Guard was involved in those protests. Things started escalating further, so the mayor's response was to not let that happen. Um, Honestly, I don't know if all of those people there even had the intent to start an insurrection on the Capitol. I think a lot of people were there just to protest. I think a lot of people there might not have even known what was going on. But there were definitely people with the intent to either antagonize and scare the politicians or legitimately cause harm. What I saw as it was happening, I was watching multiple different live streams from NBC and CBS, major news corporations in America. And it was hard to tell what was happening, but it was clear that something very bad was going on. And as things started happening, as more reports came out, it was clear that 5 people had died, and that you could say, if you listened to what Trump said at his rally down the street, that indicated he may have suggested people go there and cause some trouble.
Yeah, and I saw that it was also in the middle of the to accept the election of the Biden mandate. So it was
Right.
purposely in the middle of that, right? I mean, there
Well,
was
the irony of that
moments
is
prior.
that that whole process is a formality. It doesn't actually seal in the election in any way. The Electoral College had already voted. The election was done. Biden had won. So that trying to stop that process wouldn't have done anything. It was just out of symbolism, really.
Mhm.
And I've heard argument that those protesters, they didn't have guns. Like, if they had actually been trying to take over the Capitol, I think they would have had guns. There would have been a lot more of a military kind of mindset, and people were like grappling up the walls and breaking in and destroying stuff. And no doubt, like, people were injured. I think 50 something people were injured, 5 people died, and there was definitely inciting of this violence by major politicians. But like, of course, not to downplay it too. I'll definitely get shit for this, but it could have been so much worse if it was planned out, if it was as intentional as people are trying to make it seem, but it was bad.
Yeah, I think never happened before in
No, it has never happened before.
definitely like a really strange year.
Certainly a very
To
weird
start with an
historical moment.
insurrection in in the capital. Like this year can like this event can be the path to more this kind of more events like this disruptive, bad, and mob rioting that
Right. It's
that
a
like setting the stage for other things that are really bad. And
fiery way to start off the new year. 2020 was hell, but 2021 is very interesting already.
yeah, it is. Um, and wanted to ask actually, like the perception of the people there is like the Trump supporters are um, promoting this kind of events or this kind of acts. Like I saw the main thing and the main narrative here is that basically Trump allowed them to enter or supported them to enter. Then it published that video on Twitter when he said,
Right.
you know,
Go to the
stay
Capitol
home, but
and tell them how you feel.
yeah, and but you're great, you're amazing, but go home. And
Right.
that video was deleted.
And the whole time he was also saying that the election was stolen,
Mm-hmm.
and that there is not enough evidence to suggest that the election was stolen. There. So in democracy, there is always uh, indication of people trying to swing the election in certain places. People are always cheating. So election fraud always happens. Trump is pointing at those small things and saying these were enough to cause him to lose the election, and then saying that he won to his base, using that fuel, that anger, manipulating those people, and then he used that anger to have them show how they feel to the U.S. Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't the only place where there were protests either. There was they called them "Stop the Steal." There were "Stop the Steal" protests all over the country, not to that scale or that amount of violence, but even in my state, in the capital, um, I think Maricopa County, one of the towns here, there was a protest, and one of my friends went there. He Facebook live streamed it, and he was just talking to those people there.
Yeah. So related to that, there is like in all the country this kind of I don't know polarity, or there are some countries that believe in certain ways and others that believe in certain ways. Because in the case that what you said before will happen, I mean, what is the chance that neighbors will fight each other or just you know just never listen to their neighbors and like
So it
never
starts
talking
with
to them and be just like this guy is a completely idiot and stuff.
disagreeing with each other. You have different values than me, so I don't want to hear what you say anymore. So we stop talking. Over time, I don't like you anymore. I'll start dehumanizing you. And from there, I don't care if any of your property gets damaged or if your family gets hurt or anything like that. You build up the dehumanization up until, fuck it, I don't care if we fight. I don't care if you die. It just keeps going. You can turn that tide, you can bring it back, you can try to understand, but that's not what's happening. That's what my friend who was live streaming that protest, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to understand, and he was talking to some people. He thought he would talk to more people, but a lot of people were like, why are you here? And to be fair, he did have a sign that was antagonizing people, but it was intended on trying to get conversation as well. His sign said, Trump lost, get over it, which is inflammatory on purpose. But it also had an American flag on the back. And there were people there that were telling him that he should leave because they're being nice to him right now, but some other people might not be. These people also had guns. They were just brandishing their rifles in full tactical gear, some of them.
And you are allowed to go to the protest with guns. I mean,
It varies state to state. Like Sweden's gun laws, I believe, are different from like the UK's gun laws.
yeah, I mean, in Europe, you'll not see any like. there are not so many protests. I mean, like in most of the states, the gun regulations are like strong, really strong. And in my country, never happened after there was a revolution in the 89 with the army fighting the people because it was communism before here in my country. And after that event, never happened a protest with guns. There were like violation.
So I want to get to that point, the government fighting the people and
Yeah,
that being revolving around communism. There is this um, on the left there is a rise of this fascination with communism, socialism, Marxism, and on the right there is this complete disregard for any potential good of those ideas to the point where they don't respect those people anymore. But also there is a legitimate fear of historical occurrences from those systems. So those are all playing out right now.
yeah. Interesting. I mean, never heard, never heard someone to put it this way because we kind of talk a lot here about what the old system brings and a lot of things that the system produce. Um, we can see the results now after 30 years of democracy. So even now, after 30 years of democracy, things from the past are coming up and coming up to like like a fog, and we are discovering more and more destroying and a lot of damage that this system did. So
Right.
I studied Marxism, for example, at the university in Germany because I was studying in Trier. Trier was the city in Germany was where Marx was born, and also there, Germany is like one of the states in Europe that is more on a social. They have a social democracy. They have um, a lot of payments to the people who are not able to work or to or they are helping the old people, and usually they help like for example schools and universities in Germany, most of them are free because the state is kind of powerful and they promote this type of social democracy. But to the point with Marx and communism, like we discuss a lot of the ideas of communism, and communism didn't work for certain reasons, and can never work because you are not incentivized to bring innovation to the market. The guys who are controlling the system are the same old guys who want the rules to be respected by all of their people, and you cannot have new ideas, you cannot have new technology in a communist country, you cannot have new businesses that are bringing new value to society. So these
Not unless
ideas will
you
never.
assassinate the old regime, which is what happened.
Exactly, because people cannot stay in a society that their freedom was oppressed every time because you are not agreeing with the guys who are ruling that. So this kind of agenda and this kind of parties and politics are forever gone. I mean, you cannot say forever, but at least for a while, after we recover from the traumas of the past, we'll never go that way. So I think your country, it's you should be grateful because you were not experiencing that damage and that like really bad regime. So I will say
Oh,
that
certainly.
yeah, I would
But
say that
to
people
our
should be more aware of and learn from other countries and the
yes.
stories from other people because my parents lived through that. It was a mess.
but to our detriment, I think my country has, watching communism spread across Europe, we went hyper in the opposite direction, to the point where things like social democracy are so out of the realm of possibility in people's minds that it's a huge uphill battle just for regular social programs that are widespread across Europe.
Yeah,
And that's, anything of that sort is labeled as communism and bad and needs to be shut down. Like me personally, I'm pretty left leaning, and I understand both the left and right dichotomy a lot better than a lot of the people that I talk to. They want to shut down this side and this side, and I don't think that's how you make any sort of progress. I like
yeah,
that. I like that you brought up Marxism, that you studied Marxism, that you have a historical understanding for your country as well, because a lot of people who are openly communist in my country, I think that's a ridiculous perspective to have, but I don't think they really fundamentally understand the hardships of the people that lived under those regimes.
exactly, exactly. That's 100% the true. And I heard stories from people, so uh, I not only understand the intellectual part of the communism and the books that are promoting like Marx and other um, authors that are kind of promoting this ideology of this regime. But also I hear a lot of stories from the people who gone through that. Like, imagine that you are not able to, in some countries, not only in my country but in other countries like Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, you are not allowed to travel outside of your country. Imagine that. And you're kind of indoctrinating from the school. You're learning a certain history, for example, like the communist regime changed the history in the history books because they want to fit their agenda. So they tell a lot of lies from the we had like Romania was before was ruled by a king, so before the communism. So they change all that history. We have a dynasty from Germany. They come here, and for like 60 years there was their dynasty, and we had kings and queens. And after that the communism came like from 40s till 80s, till actually till 90s. So imagine how damage was done to the people brain and the consciousness of their history, that even now we are not the real stuff that happened in the history were taught in schools and in universities. So um,
Yeah, it
believe me
makes
that
you
there is not a
question
path
what
to go.
reality is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, exactly. It's like in these movies when you see the world completely changed by some things like I'm imagine Matrix or other things, that when people opinions were just controlled by something like a machine or like other people's. So it's kind of you are living in a fantasy movie, living in a region like this, but you are actually living it, right? So it's really bad. Yeah, and wanted to go in talking about your country. So, what is the development in politics um, after the Trump administration? Like, what he left in the in Washington and in the country on the table to solve? Like, the world right now, as I see it, has different problems and a lot of problems, and we need some solutions for that. I mean, everyone can complain about the situation, but we have and need some solutions. What you think the past administration leave on the table, and what you think are the solutions for the new one to just make the world and your country a better place to live.
So I think a presidency under Biden will be quite similar to the Obama era politics. Um, I think Trump did a lot of damage. Maybe not actual damage, but I think socially. So the marks that he left, I think, are still going to be present. I think there is a new form of politics that uh, a Trump bred kind of populism that has rooted itself, and it's not going to go away if Trump goes away. A lot of the left in my country believes that Trump will just fade out, but his ideas, his way of manipulating people's perspectives, this doublespeak, this kind of uh, cult-like behavior, that's not going away. That is now here, and it has to be recognized. But a Biden presidency, it's going to be a lot of nothing. The social change that the actual left has been fighting for, it's not going to happen. Not under a Biden presidency. Maybe the how do I phrase this without getting canceled? um,
Don't be afraid to speak your
oh
truth.
no, I'm not. I'm not afraid.
That's great.
So the hyperfixation on race and inequality and things like that, I think that'll be very present in a Biden presidency, but not a lot of actual economic change for the citizens of my country. As far as global affairs, I don't think the ridiculousness of the United States war machine is going to stop, which is terrifying. That should have stopped a long time ago. That never should have started. So really, I think it's going to be a whole lot of nothing. I think we got Trump out. That's good. Yes, that is great. We don't need him there. He shouldn't have been there. But now it's back to the old ways. No progress, just a step back or sidestep.
Hmm.
People voted in mass for Biden because they didn't like Trump, not because they liked Biden.
And related to that, I really, believe that sometimes you have to vote for the least amount of evil. So it happens also here, like in the
It's a
past
very
elections, some people go to vote just because they don't want the other guy to run the
right.
office. It was a hate vote, not a appreciation vote. And yeah, I mean, I feel sometimes that some guys who are running for the presidency or some really important like position in the state are how that people can be so up there in this position to vote for, like, I mean, I don't have anything with Biden or with Trump or with these old guys, but they I think American politics can be like represented better. It's just my opinion when I see from outside. I don't have so much experience. um
We are certainly in dire need of systemic change. The way that the electoral system works is so so detrimental to the way that people view just life in general.
mhm,
Um, there's the way that we vote. First of all, like the duopoly, the Democrats and the Republicans, this one side versus the other. It suppresses any form of other ideas. So now your candidate has these ideas that you don't agree with, and the other candidate has ideas that you really don't agree with. So you're voting for the lesser of two evils. That dichotomy is unhelpful for uh, any sort of progress or even sustaining just the general formalities of the country. It's just it's unhelpful. There's this idea that has been going around for a pretty long time called rank choice voting, where you can rank the highest person that you like, and then you have a second option. So it's not it's not like left or right dichotomy now. It's more like an open party kind of system. And there are other parties in the United States. It's not just the Democrats or the Republicans. There's the Green Party, Libertarian Party, um, but these parties have no way to gain a foothold because the Democrats and the Republicans are suppressing those to maintain their power. They disagree with each other fundamentally, but they will agree with each other to suppress any sort of uh, push against their power.
This is exactly what happens in my country also. Like the people, the parties from the yeah, we have like more parties involved in the cycles of elections, but they did a lot of regulations around new parties. Like right now, you can start a party. Yeah, you can bring like 1,000 people together, but nobody can vote you because you need signatures from the
Right,
people, and you
exactly.
don't need like uh, 100,000. You need like 500,000 signatures in paper. Like they did a lot of stupid regulations just to not allow these new parties to came into the election systems every 4 years. So it happens because it's the same old paradigm, right? Like the power is ours, and we don't have to allow others to came and bite our pie because it's just our pie, and we have to share it together. And now just to
And if you
bring a
want
bit
to
of
make change, you
context.
have to do it within our parameters.
Exactly. You have to follow our rules because it's our party. This country is our party, and you are not allowed. You need to pay a really expensive ticket to come to our parties, like something like that. And yeah, just wanted to bring a bit of the context. Sorry for I make a parenthesis here. Now is a big discussion here because politicians from one party they can go to another one. They can just bribe other party leaders or make some donations, and they can go to just the opposite party because the party that is yours right now is not in power. Like every 4 years the party in power changes here. Like we have 2 or 3 parties that rule for the last 30 years, and the politicians can go to another party. So you are allowed now to go to whatever party you want, whenever you want. And we are fighting like to bring a law that you're not the politicians are not allowed to move to another party. So this is a big discussion in my society right now. So it's related to what you said that
Oh, really?
in America
I don't know if I agree with that.
to move to other parties.
Right.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind of because these guys are going to the party in power when they lose the elections. So
So
this
it's not about their political associations or beliefs or values or anything. It's about shifting to the other side because they have power.
yeah, exactly. It's like you don't have any values that you stand for. I mean, these parties that are fighting each other are from we don't have like any far right or far left uh, parties. They're just like, let's say, center right and center left parties. And they have disagreements publicly. Like every time they fight each other, or it happens sometimes that some guy from this party um, he creates his own party and associates to the guys on the other side. It happens a lot, and they move it to the other side just because they have some positions to take, or they have some friends in the other party that put them in positions. like corruption, um, uh, to just they have some other businesses and they are associated the the positions in the government just because they want to prosper in their business. So this is the reason that they move a lot. And it's not like you don't have you cannot make a choice, but you cannot move to the party that wins the elections just because they win. It's like you're destroying your belief system because you go with
Right.
the guys who are winning the game, you know?
Yeah, it's like your party doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. It's not just that you are like suppress their freedoms and not allow them to move, but it's like an ethical thing. You cannot move whenever you want, and gain positions in three different parties. It's like Trump will go now with with Democrats, and he will run for I don't know some position in the Congress from the demo. It's the same thing. It's kind of man. You just pick a a team and go with that till you die. This is I mean, you can change your opinion, but you cannot go after the battle and be like, yeah, I was with you every time.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I wanted to ask you what you think are the solution for the next years, politically speaking, or in society. Like we spoke a lot about the problems, but let's find some hope.
Yeah, it's solutions. I'm going to bring it back to conversation. I fundamentally think that that's what's lacking. Um, that's partially why I started my podcast. I wanted to have more conversations. There's an art to it, like listening to people and starting to understand the complexities of people's minds and their behaviors and their lives, and you start realizing like people are not Democrats or Republicans or left leaning or right leaning or Christians or atheists or whatever box that you want to tick them in and kind of compress their personalities and lifestyles into. They're much more complex than that. And if we can get people to start seeing that, I think legitimate change can occur. I think people's minds can be opened and exposed to realities that they deem as impossible just because they're stuck in uh, closed perspectives. And I think that is truly what breeds the ideology. If the the us versus them mentality, like they disagree with me, so I can't trust them anymore. I don't want to associate. I think at the core, that's really what's going on, and we have to stop that somehow. So conversation, that's my solution. And art.
Yeah, well, I want to talk in the last part of the podcast about art and what art means to you. I just want to agree 100% with you on the conversational side of things and how we can bring valuable debates and conversation. I mean, I used to read some Greek philosophy, and they actually um, were really open to debates and to asking
Right.
questions about the meaning of life. And we kind of forget what power has the art of the conversation, of storytelling, of asking questions. We are not encouraged to in my country, in universities and in school systems, the normal school systems. You are not encouraged to ask questions. You don't. The teachers don't like to be challenged. That was happened when I was in school, and I was encountering this problems. And now I think more than ever, more people realize that we are not just a religion, or I'm not just um, part of my country. I'm part of the planet that is an ecosystem, and with each other, interact with each other. And when something bad happens in my country, also other stuff, like the bad stuff are happening to other countries, and we interact with each other. And when a country economy is collapsing, the whole ecosystem is collapsing. And when a country is the air in that country is polluted, and people are living like, um, not being able to express their freedoms and stuff. Everyone is affected by that. And I'm like surprised by how many people realized all of this stuff during COVID, that actually we are a planet and we are in this together. You see that all of us are affected by this virus. And also this evil bring up a lot of good in the world. This is what I think. And we have much more time to reflect on our ideas, our work, what we can bring to the world. And we are also part of the universe. We are a single planet in the universe. So if we are not a race that is together in this thing called universe, what we can like understand of life, if we're gonna just fight each other for our short life that we're living here, like just defend your tribe, your country, whatever, your party, depends. Some people are just defending their own selves, and they are against the world. There are some kind of people like this. Like, I met some people who don't believe in the power of the community, and they think that I can do everything alone. And there are guys who are like, yeah, my party, my business, my, I don't know, whatever is mine is the best thing. Then
Right.
my country, like my country is the best thing. This is are the nationalists, like the guys who are believing that their nation is above everything else. And these are destructive ideas. And if you read history, or you know a bit about the history, all of these ideas are just smoke in the screen. And a lot of wars, a lot of revolutions came from this ideology stuff that are just messing their heads and not bringing anything of value. Because if we are gonna see the truth, the world is not in a good shape right now. I mean, if you are not only speaking about the human race, but if you are looking at how much pollution is, how
Yeah, the climate.
bad the food is that we are eating, and all of this kind of stuff, uh, yeah, I think there is a good in that. I mean, um, even if we speak a lot about these problems, I'm just trying to be aware and bring awareness into these problems, because I can also see the good in that. I mean, I can see more people who are donating to the causes, like to protect the forests, or protect all of this, to the pollution, and promote electric vehicles, and promote technology for the better planet. So I think we are going to all of these changes, because we need they say a reset, but I would say a new way, and a new consciousness of the planet. I mean, we have to pass this crisis, because the through pain there is change. Without pain there is no change. So I really believe that. And
Right. And
yeah,
I
I will let you
100% agree.
to end this.
Um, I just wanted to say it's unhelpful. It's extremely helpful to address problems. It's unhelpful to be so cynical that there's no hope. Nihilism is not going to fix anything, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about the problems. Uh, Another point that you made that I wanted to point out: individuality is incredibly important as you as a to you as a person, but if you're so hyper focused on individuality that you neglect any form of collective thinking, then you put yourself into this self-imposed isolation, and that's not going to serve you. But the counter is collectivism to the extreme is communism, which historically has bred genocide almost every time. So you can't have just one or the other, but you can't have extremes either. You have to figure out the balance.
Yeah. I want to, for the last part, to ask you about your art
Sure.
and to discuss more, um, you know, ideas around creativity. And I also like to do my art. I'm not really
What kind
public
of
with.
art do you do?
I like to write. I've been writing a lot of short stories or some poetry, but I never publish them
Oh yeah.
because sometimes I am like I have to be better. You know, I have to learn more.
Right.
It's just that it's not a courage thing, but it's just that if I want to have a final book or a final um, published, I don't know, material, I just want to be polished in a much better way. This is how I look at things. But
Right, certainly.
I like to express myself through painting sometimes, and I like words. I'm just a word word guy. And wanted to ask you what is art to you and how you discover that you're passionate about it.
So my perspective on releasing art has always been, if it sucks right now, 10 years from now, I'm not even going to remember because I'll have expounded on how I've taken in other skills. So the art that I'll create in 10 years won't even compare. So like I've never been afraid to suck in front of people. That was heavily true for me with drawing and making music. My first band, we were terrible. We were awful. But we went and live performed in front of people all the time. We
Wow.
created an EP and we released it, and we had shirts, and like we did all sorts of things. So if you create art and you believe in your art, just keep doing it. Just put it out there, and people will probably talk shit, but that's a good way to crowdsource uh, critiques.
And how can you see your evolution in art? I mean, I
Oh man,
I mean, what
incredibly.
was the kind of like what was your passion before when you started, and what is your vision now about your art? I mean, you told me that you are having a band, or all, and also you're doing your solo. You are singing, and also like playing an instrument, or just vocal.
So I'm currently
I
in
see the guitar
three.
back. That's
Oh yeah. I'm currently in three different music projects. One is called Stumpy. That's a nickname that was given to me as a teenager by one of my best friends. He was the guitarist in my first band. Um, in that project specifically, I do uh, the entirety of the production of it. I do vocals, guitar, bass. I create the drums. I don't play drums, but I can program them. Um, and then various other MIDI keyboard kind of elements like synthesizer, strings, like composing, but with computerized instruments. So for that project, I do everything. That's my solo project. That was kind of for me to prove that I can do it all alone. But it's not as fun doing it alone. You don't have the other perspectives that are changing how the sound goes, and the idea like, oh, let's add a bridge right here. Like, I didn't think of that. Somebody else thought of that, and it makes it so much better. It makes it more fun. So I have another project called Mars Nebula, that that project is kind of like a indie rock, indie pop kind of project. I'm a co-producer, and I have my buddy who is an audio engineer. Him and I have been working on an EP with that project. We've got about 6 songs, and it's some of the best material that I've ever produced so far in my life. And then I have another project with the person that I was mentioning who gave me the nickname Stumpy. He's the guitarist in this project. I'm the bassist in that project. And then another member of my former band, he is also the guitarist and a drummer. So that's like a full rock band. So I try to do a little bit of everything and grow as much as I can as a musician and an artist. And then as well as like doing the graphic design elements for Stumpy and Mars Nebula, maybe eventually Louis on tour, which is the band.
And what is your plan with your band and with your solo project? You have some ideas on releasing some albums, or having like some clips online, or having like live sessions and going to these festivals or having concerts.
Um, so I think I don't remember my YouTube channel name, but I'm pretty sure it's called Tyler Stumpy Beck. If you go online to that channel, you can find um, some videos of me just playing guitar and singing and stuff. I did release a album called Finding My Sound under Stumpy. I put it on that channel. That was me just finding my sound. So it's a bit choppy. I didn't know how to produce music that well, but it was something. As of now, I'm working on a full length album. Definitely some of the best material that I've ever written and produced. And when that'll be released, hopefully sometime this year. It's about, I think, 12 tracks. I actually recently made the a concept for album art last night, and I've been tracking vocals. The instrumental for those songs are all pretty much done. Then Mars and Nebula, uh, the EP for that one, that'll probably get released this year. You can find our Facebook page for that Mars and Nebula. I think it's the and sign. And
Hmm.
then Louis on tour, we're kind of working on an album. That one is kind of more sporadic. Like we meet every Saturday, but sometimes we don't. So it's really hit or miss on where that project is going. But I love having that energy with other people. So I don't want to drop that one.
Okay, yeah, I imagine like the power of the team is much more greater than one
Oh yeah,
individual. Yeah. And
being in
there are more
sync with
ideas
people
every
in
time.
that there's like this flow state that you get into as a musician, connecting with another person who is playing with you in time, trying to get the cues right and completing the song together. It's so empowering.
Mhm. I love this. Yeah. Um, all right. So, what are some thoughts on the final? I did it like kind of on one block, like too heavy. Like this is the final, but we have to, like, we are already 1 hour and a half. Uh,
Right.
so I don't know how the time passes, but it's I want to ask you for the last thoughts on what you think. What path to follow. Maybe some advice for some guys who are listening, or not advice because I'm not really into advising them, but some thoughts that you have for others, something that you want to communicate from your heart to the audience, and some conclusions to our discussion. And maybe we can just having another session and talking more about the art side of things, and talking about, maybe music industry and stuff like that. I'm also passionate about, like, kind of passionate about, but from other perspective. Like, I'm a consumer of music and a consumer of bands and whatever happens
Right.
with new kind of ideas around music. So I have also friends that are playing at different festivals, or they played before this thing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, live music has
just
definitely taken a hit.
yeah, but I think after this thing will pass, there will be like a really boom into the music industry. Like everyone will go to concerts, festival, like will be like never before. I think there
Oh
is
yeah.
a
And to be
demand
fair, if
because
you have
it's not the
not,
same thing. It's not the same feeling to just listen in your home when you are with other
no.
people and dancing together or expressing your emotions. It's completely different. It's more
Oh yeah,
real.
definitely. But you're certainly losing out if you're not taking advantage of the live stream elements that you can do as a musician right now.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a
You have
lot
to
of
adapt to these times.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
Um, um, I guess not advice. Um, what I like to tell people is your life is your responsibility. Your passions are your responsibility. Your emotions are your responsibility. Your culture is your responsibility. So like if you want to make change, I would recommend that you start with yourself. Like what do you want to do? How do you think you can help people? What routines are you doing as an individual that help build you up? Like it starts with you. It starts with you as an individual and builds out into the collective. But if you aren't helping yourself, you can't really help people. So, like, are you working out? Are you meditating? Are you doing things you're passionate about? Do you have a job? Are you trying to uh, have a social life? Like, all of these things play into each other and then build out. And it continues to grow if you let it.
That's cool. If this is the last part that you are to tell, this is perfect. This was Tyler Beck from Your Thoughts podcast, and really thanks to all of you who watch or who listen to this, and hope you will like it. And at least if this is the first uh, episode that I'll publish this year, I will wish everyone a really great 2021. Let's hope that we'll be much more safer, much more willing to communicate with each other and listen to the other side and try to build something that will be positive, that will make a big and positive impact into the future, into the life that we want to see in the future. So thanks so much for you, Taylor.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much for having me on, Daniel.
thanks for, yeah, for taking the time to talk with me.